Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthy Together channel. In today's interview, I spent nearly an hour with two of our intake specialists, Robin Keating and Robin Fleming. Because of the length of the video, I decided to make two videos instead of just one. So here's part one of my two-part interview with Robin and Robin. When we talk about poverty alleviation, we're talking about a very large subject that affects a lot of people around the country. We want to address everybody, but it starts with one individual. Today with me, I have Robin Keating and Robin Fleming that we would like to talk about just bringing value from the masses to the single individual. Without further ado, let's chat with my guests today, Robin and Robin. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We always talk about the big numbers. I know that nationally, the number is about 38 million people that fall below the poverty line. The people who struggle with the working poor is about 135 million people. If it was a country, it would be the 10th largest nation in the world. When we think about it that way, it's very daunting and it could really be overwhelming and really feel like, are we going to ever make an impact? As you guys are on the phone and you guys are on the front line of the offense of investing into people's lives, I felt it was a good opportunity for us to talk about what does it mean to address the large situation of poverty one person at a time. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
I really like that. When you talk about those millions and millions of people, I don't know what to do with those numbers. And I either feel overwhelmed or something in me maybe turns away a little bit because it's more than I can manage. But when you talk about addressing the concerns wrapped around poverty, one person at a time, that I can connect with. And suddenly it becomes possible to do something.
I just noticed how giving someone value over the phone, I've been shocked how relational it becomes. Like I'm starting off on a good foot with somebody by telling them that they're valued, that they're made in the image of God. And I'm just meeting this person for the first time, but that seems to really be so needed by everyone that is on the phone. And it's a great way to begin a relationship with somebody on a very positive note.
You know, I guess I believe that every single one of us wants to be seen, really seen for who we are and heard. And so when we do, like you're talking about, that we value them, even though we've never met them, we're giving them exactly what the human heart is hungry for.
Yeah, and I get thanked almost immediately after I tell them, I just want you to know that you're made in the image of God and your worth has to do with that, not the situation that you're in, not the problems that you're having, not what's happened to you. You're worthy because of who God says you are. And I find when I say that a lot of times I'm getting, wow, thank you for saying that. Like this just
Something you said really hit home for me. You were talking about how that worth is there because the person is made in the image of God. That's something that cannot be taken away. It can't be added to, and it can't be subtracted from. Somebody's made in the image of God, made by God, and therefore is of awesome worth, and nobody can take that away from them. And think about that when the people that we're talking to are usually experiencing a combination of material poverty, relational poverty, emotional poverty, like distress. And so in all of these areas where maybe they are not feeling so valued because they can't provide enough for their families and they can't, their relationships are wounded. And so they feel bad that way. And, you know, you named the list of things that could be going on where somebody might be feeling of less worth. And then we're saying, and you are of worth. And I'm gonna copy you because I have said less often, you're of worth because you are made in God's image. But man, that's powerful.
We almost have to remind them that they are have value.
Right.
Because a lot of the times, like you had mentioned, it's like they're thinking their value is coming from the material possessions.
Right.
Maybe the value given to them or not given to them by their parents or their significant others or even their own children.
They're not believing, maybe. I would suggest that most of the time, the people that we're talking with are not believing that they are of much worth. Or they're questioning it anyway.
Yeah.
And so what we're saying is, no, you are. You are. And we haven't even done anything to help you.
That's what's the best part in my mind for as far as for me.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going into this situation. I don't know this person. I don't know their situation. I don't know how or what they're going to expect from me. But every time I start with they're valuable, it changes the whole conversation, I believe, on the phone.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You're giving me shivers.
One of the things that I started doing recently is when we talk about mutual participation, when somebody's going to be receiving services from us. And one of the things that I've started doing is telling them how they're already participating. Like, you're talking to me, that's participation. You telling me your story and allowing me to listen, that's participation. And I can tell that they're thinking, oh, because when I first mentioned we want mutual participation, they may be thinking, oh, what do I have to do to earn this? Or what do I have to do to get this service? What does that mean? But when I tell them that they're already participating, or good for you for calling and advocating for yourself, that's really great. Not everybody can do that. That builds them up like, okay, I might be on the right track here.
Wow, that's really good. It's just I think the importance of having that recognition and rewarding that begins to instill that value in them, that they don't have to climb Mount Everest to seek your approval now.
Right.
Or they don't have to cross the Pacific just to get an item from Love Inc. Like just being on the phone, that's the beginning. And that at that moment, that's enough.
We are looking at every single person who calls as somebody who is worth being treated with dignity. And it doesn't matter what their history is, and it doesn't matter what their current situation is.
We are not interested in the quantity of numbers. We're not trying to get through hundreds of phone calls a day. We're not trying to process people in almost a mechanical way. We do have our processes and everything, but we're not trying to process people for the sake of just getting people through the system. So I think in that space of like investing in them relationally means time, not just time, maybe that one moment on the phone call, but the time like through a process of weeks and months and even years in some cases, of allowing them to adapt and to grow.
So isn't that what Jesus did? I mean, we know that he taught masses, but the bulk of the stories involve smaller groups.
That's a great
Lots
point.
of stories that are with individuals or his closest followers. I've been impressed recently with the thought of how God doesn't seem to be in a hurry. And if that's true, and Jesus didn't, you read through the Gospels and he didn't seem to be in a hurry. So maybe we don't have to be in a hurry with people, and we can be okay with things taking time to unfold.
I think that's a very interesting point because like Jesus was very intentionally intimate with individuals. It communicates to me and to my heart. We talk about like Jairus' daughter and the woman who suffered for 12 years, the woman at the well. We look at all these stories and how he was so like passionate to meet that one person and get invested with them makes me feel like he's interested in me personally as well.
Just to bridge that gap between the last time we saw them or talked to them and sometimes it's a few weeks, sometimes maybe longer. Hopefully we're trying to get to like just the next week. But that we remember what we last talked about, or that how's this coming? Oh, I know that you went for a job interview. how did that turn out? And, well, I didn't get it. Well, that's okay. Have you thought about this? Just those conversations. Or I remember sometimes I've talked to moms, and they're doing the best they can to uh, pay the bills. And there, one mom I was talking to, went to school, and she was working 2 jobs to try and keep things going for her 2 daughters. And she said it just feels like it's not enough. Like, all they ever want to point out to me is, why can't I do the things that my other friends do, or why can't we afford this, or can I? And just to be able to say, hey, you're being a good mom. You're taking care of things. They may not see it now, but you're doing what it takes. When you're by yourself and you don't have anybody saying those things to you, it can really spiral, in my mind, into difficult situations in your mental health. When you start to feel like a failure and you don't have anybody cheering you on, that's not good. And that's what I think. That's how I picture Jesus too. Is he cheers us on, like, well, you're doing good. He encourages us. He doesn't stand pointing the finger, pointing out everything you do wrong. He's there to tell you what you did right too, and he's also there to help you do better. No judgment. We can do better.
How we entreat each individual is so important, because he has created them in his own image. He's created them for a purpose. He's created them for design. He's created them for worship. And at whatever level the world has interfered in that space, or things have interfered in that space, we are trying to bring them back to that center in that place of worship to Jesus.
So I was talking to someone recently, and they made the comment that no one's been able to help them. Love Inc. is the only people that have helped them. And I started thinking about that, and thinking about the different stories I've heard with people feeling seen and maybe having a bad experience, and now they're being seen and they're having a good experience. But a lot of times they'll say that nobody they don't go out. They don't leave their place. And so they're kind of putting those that want to help at a disadvantage. We can't see you. You don't come out. And yet I have this person on the phone. And so there's a bridge being built. And then what I love about it is that eventually I hope to bring a community of people around that person through the church. And they may not even recognize it at the time. They're just seeing people are starting to care about them. And they have no idea what the common thread is amongst those people that are reaching out to them. And I just think it's one of the things that we do that I haven't seen others do is we're talking to people that you wouldn't bump into in the store because they don't go to the store or they don't go out. And so now we're finding someone that's starting to open up a little bit and build a relationship. And that's, I don't know, I love that.
We're also connecting with people who maybe you would see because they go to the store, but you wouldn't know.
Right.
Because they are remaining unseen at those deeper levels.
And they're covering that up. Yeah.
For protection.
Yeah, for sure.
They don't, often for good reason, don't trust anybody with what's going on in their lives and with where they're struggling. And then they get on the phone with somebody who is communicating to them that regardless of where they're at, they're valued, and is conveying all kinds of empathy and genuine curiosity, like, how is that for you? And tell me more. And so some ways that sometimes people are not seen just because they've hidden, maybe not physically, but hidden emotionally and hidden their vulnerability.
What do you think, like, how do you kind of get, like, through to that part of their life? Like, how is it that you are able to get to that part where the person opens up to you? I mean, what is it maybe it's we'll call it a tactic for lack of a better term for right now, but what do you feel has been the most useful or the most helpful?
So through what Robin said, about communicating directly or maybe indirectly that they are of worth, through the warmth, I think warmth in your tone of voice, openness to who they are, and kind of slowing down the process, even the beginning of the intake process where we're wanting to communicate who Love Inc. is, what we're about, and how this process might look for them, taking a bit of time with them. And so I've heard Robin do this, and I do this every 2 or 3 statements we make, maybe stopping and saying, does that make sense to you? Is that okay? So we're respecting them as a person with autonomy from the start, I think. Where can I take a bit of time to explain who we are and how this process might work? I've explained to you how we're going to want to contact a couple of people in your circle who can verify your need. Is that okay? Even though that's a part of the process that's required, we're asking for permission to do that. So I just think from the outset.
Yeah. I feel almost like in the conversation, like we're going to take steps together and we're going to coordinate our steps to where we're both comfortable to move forward. And I can't move faster than you can go. And I'm going to go at the pace that's helpful to both of us.
Which means we also don't rush into all of the, even the part of the application that says, okay, what do you need? Check.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will have had an awful lot of conversation with somebody just about life and what's going on. Maybe it's not the most hurtful things first. Maybe it was today they were, I don't know, filling out a job application or something, just talking about life, and then maybe doing a little bit of relating, like, oh, yeah, I think I understand that. I'm a mom, too. I've been in that position. Before we ever get to the business end of things, I think that's helpful.
Yeah, that's good.
I also think I say things like, I hear you, validating what they're sharing when they do share difficult things. Sometimes I'm apologizing that happened to them, even though it's like they've never had anybody apologize for the things that have happened to them. And so I try and do that. And even when I'm praying with someone, I try and acknowledge what they've gone through and say in there that God sees that too. It breaks God's heart that they were treated in such a way. I don't want people to think that God's okay with what happened to them. It's He's not happy about it either if they've been traumatized in some way. So
yeah. Oh man,
That's
huge.
It seems like if we actually authentically value people as God's creation and of worth ourselves, it's going to naturally come out in how we interact with people in any arena of our lives, but even on the phone with people that we don't know. So I'm thinking, Robin, of the things that you're describing about how you respond to people. And I would venture to say, I think I know about you that you actually really do really and truthfully value people. It's not just a tenet that you believe and that you make yourself act out.
It's not a script.
It's not a script.
We're not scripting it. Yeah.
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 And so when we truthfully believe that this person that we're talking to is important and that how they feel is important and that God sees them and that no matter where they're at, that God has all kinds of compassion for them, and then it makes it a lot easier to you just more naturally slow down and listen and validate and encourage and try to offer hope.
When we talk about like the big numbers, in our country and around the world, and then of course in our own community, we have some huge numbers. They're statistically the same nationally, but when we talk about our community, like I want to really make an impact in our community. Like I want to see our community flourish. And something we talk about a lot is not just flourishing in material possessions. It's not just flourishing in their income or their job status or education even, but it's actually flourishing in their whole being, which is relationships. Like, so we want to help them restore relationships, whether it be with family members or creating a whole new network with churches and people. And so the thing you mentioned earlier, Robin K, was the idea of like they're sometimes unaware of a new support system that's coming around them. And I want to talk a little bit about the church's involvement about adding value.